Okay, we're live. Welcome to our very first SquareForge webinar. My name's Elwyn Davis, founder of Pixel Haze and Pixel Haze Academy. And also we have Will. Will's our technical lead, computer science background. He creates all of our plugins and handles the custom code technical aspects and also digital marketing aspects of the business. Have I missed anything there, Will?
No, I think you've got it all.
Will also sets up SquareForge when you make the purchase. Notice I said when, not if. Good start. And also, he will be the one liaising with you to make sure that it's a smooth transition. But you're probably wondering, what is SquareForge? And it's a platform that we're very excited about. It's integrated directly into Squarespace, meaning that we can create a template builder that we can then handpick the best layouts from that template builder, then put them all together in our own web pages, whether it's a home page, specific landing page, product page, service page, team, about page, pretty much anything that you've got in there, apart from some of the more structured areas. So it doesn't cover product pages because Squarespace does a really good job of handling that already. But what it allows us to do is to create intricate, fully bespoke layouts without having to go back to the drawing board every single time. It's not about reinventing the wheel. With SquareForge, we have packed in 20 years of web design experience of different layouts types that have been tried and tested across a wide range of sectors and brought into one platform that hopefully will save anything up to 40, even 50% of your build time within Squarespace. And it's available at squareforge.net, but don't go over and take a look just yet. We're going to give you a full demo today explaining how it works, how you can get the most out of it, and also how it can work for both beginners as training wheels and right the way through to experienced designers, and how you can shave that 50% of your build time without compromising on the look and feel that you're after and that bespoke element you're going for. Every structure that we build is fully customizable, and also by joining our school community where the SquareForge is integrated, so any new upgrades is already included within that membership fee, you can also request your own additional layouts. So you can show us a website that you built in Squarespace that has a structure that we don't have in SquareForge, and it's Will's job predominantly, or myself, we will replicate that outline structure into SquareForge. Anything else I should add now before we go and have a look, Will?
No, I think well done for not getting confused between SquareForge and Squarespace when you were giving those examples, because I definitely would have used them both interchangeably. Yeah. I think
two prestigious companies or products. One's probably slightly more well-known than the other.
But and the other's Squarespace.
The other's Squarespace. Yeah, okay. If we haven't lost everyone at this point, we're doing well. So, okay. So I'm going to just hopefully press the button to share the screen, and it should have come up on your screen now where we've got the homepage of SquareForge. So this is very similar, but also slightly different to the master template, which is this site here. So the master template is what you get when you make the purchase. We integrate this into your own Squarespace account. If you don't already have one, we'd recommend creating a Squarespace account or giving us an email address where you want to create your account. And then Will's job will be to set that up within 2 business days into your own Squarespace account. This is our demo site. So it's a live, fully functioning website where you can purchase SquareForge in 3 different options. So you can either pay once and use it forever. You can join our Pixel Haze community over at School with a K, SKOOL. Or alternatively, you can retrofit, or we can retrofit up to 10 different layouts from SquareForge into your pre-existing Squarespace template. And if you have SquareForge and you have the Square Websites Chrome extension plugin, which is this tool up here, if you have the pro version of this, you can use the 2 together to take SquareForge structures like these designs here. Say we wanted this hero section on one of our existing sites, we can use the Square Websites Pro extension tool to copy that section and paste it into any other Squarespace 7.1 site. It's really flexible. We love this Chrome extension, and that gives us another way of accessing this template kit. what I've tried to do and what we try to do with the SquareForge site is to give you a breakdown of how it works. So we've got a full video here showing how it works in more detail. But the idea of this webinar is to ease you into the process, showing you bit by bit. Also, some of the benefits for this limitless customization. You can take a layout that looks like this hero section here. And then if you wanted to move the image to the left, the text to the right, you can do all of that. Just a case of testing it in mobile to make sure it works. So we're not starting from scratch. We're not reinventing the wheel every single time with the layouts. All of the layouts on this homepage are available within SquareForge in one of the different template structures. And then we adapt it to deploy it to an individual section of every page. And if you're brand new to Squarespace, this is the first thing that we need to know. Every Squarespace page is broken down into different panels or sections. So this is one section. Then as we switch to the light background, we've got another section. Then we go back to a dark section. Then we go back to another dark section, and so on and so forth. So every time, or most of the time, when we see a different background change, we are in a different section. And every one of these sections can be designed individually and then pushed together to create one final web page. So this is a long scroll page. There's lots of features in here, and it taps into the full benefits that you get with Squarespace, things like the accordion blocks. And if I was to jump across to our master template, this is what you get when you first purchase SquareForge. We get the option to use any of these layouts. And we can see with this version that this colored bar, which will be adapted to match your brand colors if you choose to, acts as a natural divider between each of these different layouts. So you can go into any page, click on edit. And as soon as we clicked on edit, we've got this little heart icon. From here, we can save any section that we want into our favorites. So what we're not doing is working on any of these pages individually. Then we can go in and add a new page. I'm going to add a blank page. And in this section, I can add a new section. And instead of choosing one of the Squarespace layouts, and I'm fed up of these photos now, I've seen them so many times. So it's nice to have some new options, but you can still use all of Squarespace's own pre-existing section templates as well. You can add a blank section, which I've done in the past, or alternatively, you can go into the saved sections and we can see that the two layouts that I saved as favorites are now available. And this allows us to build our layout designs up section by section. And from here, we've got all of the features that we have available in Squarespace, including the 24-column grid, the option to resize images, reorganize it, all from a starting template. So you may be asking at this stage, why is this different to just about any other template available for Squarespace, either Squarespace's own first-party templates or some of the wonderful and weird and wacky third-party templates that you can get? We're not saying that you shouldn't go down that route, but if you're building Squarespace sites regularly, or you can't find the perfect template that perfectly matches your content, and that happens a lot, the main difference is you are working section by section, as opposed to having to shoehorn all of your content into a pre-existing structure. We love Squarespace templates. We build them ourselves, and we sell them relatively regularly on our site. So therefore, we don't mind if you want to buy one of our pre-designed templates or you want to go down the SquareForge route. But this gives us full design structure and control over how each page looks.
Yeah, as well, I think SquareForge itself, it streamlines that whole web design process, doesn't it? Because you've got access to all of these pre-built customizable templates and all of these interactive elements like you've just shown, without the need to start from scratch. Now, as you mentioned, like with a lot of other templates, you are stuck and within the confines of that template itself. With Squarespace Forge, you've essentially got yourself a template builder that you can just refer back to as and when you need it. I think we've got over 250 white labeled sections that you can sort of mix and match.
I've been busy in the last month. I think we're up to about 300 now. So
perfect.
And if I was just to demo some of these, so we've gone through the hero section. These are some of the examples I've already shown. We've got Content Classic, which is probably one of the largest libraries in here. Loads of pre-existing structures like this one, really simple, sleek, narrow width. When we're starting to design, become web designers, one of the biggest mistakes that we often make, and I made it back in the early 2000s when I was building my first professional websites, is that we tend to have our content sprawling across the page too much. So this remedies that by making that content width much narrower. And we've got lots of nice, clean white space either side. We've got the lines then to add accents above and below, which are adjustable based on the site styles as well. And we've got this option here, for example. Now, this looks quite stark, but this gray block here is a background image. We deliberately didn't put stock images in because just as I got very tired very quickly of the Squarespace placeholder images, there is a fear that you're going to get tired of seeing images in place that aren't related to the product or service that the website's about. So therefore, by going with wireframe structures, essentially, this is all white labeled and really clean and monochromatic, is that the moment you change this to your color palette, the moment you start adding your images, it really comes to life. And you can replicate these areas, try the content. If it doesn't quite work, you haven't lost much time at all to move on to the next section design. Again, we're not shoehorning our content into a pre-existing template. And beauty of this one is that we could add, for example, use Canva very quickly to add a gradient. So we can have a black gradient coming in from this line and actually have it blending into a background photo to create a unique effect that doesn't take a huge amount of time to put together. Then we've got some of the more advanced layouts like this one here, where we've got a background image. So this could be a textured or abstract background that goes behind that white paper kind of card style effect. This could also be a scenic backdrop, but generally we're looking at something that doesn't have a huge amount of detail in the foreground, so it acts as a frame around the content. Then we could either add images or icons into each of these feature list options. Then we can add one feature image in this section here. And if we want to make all of these corners rounded, there is an option within Squarespace to edit the shapes that have been added and put it in place. Then we go on to this option, which is one of my favorite go-to design elements when we start breaking down single column formats into multiple columns. Think of it as a magazine style layout for your web page. So we can now start adding this layout in combination with the hero sections that we picked out from the other hero designs and start putting them together. Then we add our own visual flair, our own overriding design themes. So if, again, your website is more rounded and you want to go with pill-shaped buttons, you do that once in the Squarespace admin and it will roll it out regardless of the section that you've created. And so all of these look very monochrome, very simple. That was very deliberate. So it means that the world is your lobster, and depending on how much you want to customize and edit these. This is another very sleek one that wouldn't look out of place on, say, for example, the Apple Store site, where it's monochrome, clean, simple fonts, and easily legible text, but also cascaded. So we've prioritized. So we've got the spotlight on this heading here, and then this is supporting text to go along with the headline. As we jump across to mobile view, I'm not sure if it'll work on the screen. We'll try it. Yes, it did. There we go. So we can see that all of these layouts break down to mobile view automatically. And this is where I'm nervous. Have I tested them all fully for this? But I believe so. So they're all pre-built to work on both desktop and mobile. And then you can either choose to add your content in, or you can start building around it. So for newcomers to Squarespace, think of this as the perfect training wheels. You try a section, it doesn't work for you, you haven't lost any time, or maybe 5 minutes at most. If you don't use SquareForge and you're using one of the Squarespace templates, you could end up losing 2 or 3 hours trying to squeeze your content into a structure that just doesn't work for it. And then you don't have any other backup options. Whilst with 300 different layouts, and I did the math, and it was we're talking about billions of combinations in terms of the layouts that we can add per page for these designs. We've even then got advanced structures. So this is more for the advanced designers out there, although newcomers can just copy and paste this structure. What I'd recommend, though, is making sure that you keep roughly the same amount of content for each tile. But if you're an experienced designer and you wanted to add an image to the left-hand side of this on every one of these blocks, you can just pick it up and play with it as from there, or you can choose another structure in these card layouts that works for you. Loads of options to play around with, and we've got so much that we can do to work with. So, Will, do you want to take over just the process of setting up and installing this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so every morning I'll come in and check for new Squarespace orders. I'll then set the custom wrap on a new Squarespace. I did it. I knew it. I knew I'd get them mixed up. A new SquareForge installation. If we have quite a big backlog of orders, then that's why we include the second day in the installation period, so we can make sure that everything's set up and installed correctly. Sometimes Squarespace has an issue. If you ever use Squarespace to make a duplicate of a website, you'll know that sometimes Squarespace has an issue with transferring content like images. So we do a little bit of housekeeping just to make sure it all looks nice, shiny, and new. Then you will decide which email address is added to your master SquareForge installation, and it just means that you control the scope of access, especially if you're working in a big agency and you don't want everybody to have access to the master copy of the SquareForge. On that line as well, we kind of stress and make it known that you should not be editing the master template. Once we've given you access and you want to use the Forge to create your own websites and start setting up your own templates, always make sure that you are duplicating the master copy, just so that if in the future there's an issue with what you've done, you're not having to reinstall or have this whole back and forth with the people on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully no one noticed, but I had to nip out there for a very short minute. So thanks for covering that one, Will. So the next part now is I'm assuming Will's taking you through the kind of the process of the approach where you set it up from start to finish. And so I'll jump back in and pick it up now in terms of what happens next. Once you got your hands on SquareForge, what can you do with it? So we'll just jump back onto the screen, and this time we're going to actually create a copy of SquareForge here. So once it's in your account, it'll either display like this or something slightly different depending on how many sites that you have set up with SquareForge. But you're looking at this master version, and it will probably have your name or your business's name on the title, because part of our setup process will change that for you as almost like a concierge feature with it. And once we've done that, then you're able to duplicate it. So by duplicating it, you're keeping the master at all times. And the same then when we're editing the websites once they're set up, we save a section as favorites instead of editing directly in that section, because we end up messing up those core structures. What if we want to keep them and bring in new layout structures in a few months' time? Also, one other point that I get asked quite regularly is, should people delete those SquareForge layouts? And whilst this one's building in the background, it usually takes 2 to 3 minutes to set it all up. Say, for example, someone wanted to delete all of these folders with all of the different layouts in place. You can, of course, do that by clicking on the trash can icon. Now, the one thing, Squarespace will save these for up to 30 days, but they'll lose the folder structure, so they'll be coming back in a random order. But also, we've hidden all of these pages from Google, meaning that you're not going to end up in a scenario where You've got random content that was created quite obviously by ChatGPT,
that's
popping
a
up on your
big thing for when you're working in digital marketing, and specifically SEO. What do we call it? SEO stealth mode, that's it. So SquareForge avoids the sort of like duplicate indexing issues, and it also helps to keep all of the projects organized and optimized. And ultimately, stealth mode will help reduce the design time and effort, and they're still there if you ever want to use them again and duplicate them for another page, for example.
Yeah, because one of the main points is no website is truly finished. You can get to a point where you have a version 1 ready to go live, but for a successful website to have long-term success, to drive new business towards your organization or your client's organization, that requires regular updates and improvement. So you can, of course, save your own new layouts as favorites, and this is something that we do quite regularly. So we use this one, for example, but then we want to change the button so it's not quite as big a button, or we want to replace it with an introductory sentence or an icon. We can do that once and then test it on mobile, and then we can save that as a new favorite section, meaning that we, instead of using the SquareForge start-in layout, we've now adapted it, made it our own, and then resaved it to be able to use on multiple page layouts. Whilst it's still created in the background, I'll just see if it's still going through the process. No, that's just finished, so we'll be able to look for that in just a moment. But one of the other benefits of this approach is we can use it for wireframing, and that's what we'll do next. So if I go back to our Squarespace admin, because we've got so many sites on here, probably up to nearer 500 now, I'm going to search for Forge. And if you've got a load of sites on your account, this is what I'd recommend doing. And we can see we've got a lot of SquareForge sites. So I believe this is going to be the one here, which expires on May the 1st, so roughly 6 months away. So I'm going to click on this to edit it. And this is what I'd recommend you do once you've replicated your master template. First of all, change the site name. So if we do webinar example, not the most creative of names there. We're going to just jump through all of these. I've seen it so many times. And now we've got our new title for it. But we can see that we've got this random domain URL here. We will change your master to be something that's more akin to your name, and you can change it afterwards if you want to. So if I, sometimes the / doesn't work straight away. So if I just go back to the page and then type in / we'll come up with a quick search. And then for a search for domains, we can go to this section. This is optional, but it just helps you to organize it. And if we change it to SquareForge -webinar. So if this hasn't been used on an existing Squarespace site, we'll be able to change our admin domain name to that URL. There we go. So we can see, hopefully you can see that there in the URL, in the address bar here, we can see the updated URL. It's what we call a subdomain. So it comes before the .squarespace.com, but now it's more individualized instead of being random word combinations. So this is set up. There's nothing on the main navigation apart from what I actually created, which I should have deleted. So that was me being a bit naughty there. So this is what you should find is there's nothing on the navigation, meaning that you can now go in and create a new blank page. And we'll call this home page to be original. Okay, so we can see the blank section here. So the first thing I recommend is to go through and choose the footer section that you want. So within Squarespace, we can't save footer sections as favorites, at least not yet. So the way we've got around this is we've given you, I think, about 12 to 13 different structures for footer sections that you just delete the ones that you don't want. And so you can see the blue border, hopefully, where you've got the add section above and below. Everything between that is the active section, and that's the one you would remove. So if we leave this one here, quite a streamlined footer, we're going to remove everything else. So this might just take a minute or two just to go through and remove the layouts that you don't want, keeping the one in that you do. Unfortunately, I'm yet to find a slicker way of doing this at the moment, but it's still a lot quicker than building our footer sections from scratch. Of course, you can just go in and add your own blank section to start with and build up your own unique structure for your chosen footer section. And coincidentally, if the longer, deeper footers are what we call jumbo footers, and they become more and more popular because even though they come at the bottom of the web page, they're available on every single page, unless you specify that you don't want them on individual pages. So now we've got our footer in place. This block here is ready for a logo or an image if we wanted to drop it in place. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next step, which we're going to choose our starting wireframe for our site. So we've created a mini course called the Website Blueprint that goes through the whole planning and briefing side of a project in a lot of detail. And it used to be that we would wireframe all of our websites on a chalkboard or pen and paper. But now we found that we're actually using SquareForge to wireframe with the client present, either on a video call or in person. And as more and more of our projects have moved online and internationally, this solution has become our go-to option. So we've got this layout in place now, and we're going to start building it up. So let's go for a typographical style hero section. You notice some of these are dropped down. This is just because it's an abnormal width to the site. So this is how it would look normally on just about any page. So let's say we wanted this option here with a large image to the right, almost like a landing page intro. It's quite word heavy. So we go into edit, and we can see here now that we've actually got the Square Websites Chrome extension coming up here. I'm going to disable that for the rest of this workshop. As useful as it is and allows us to take it from one Squarespace site to another, it might be a bit confusing in this case. So if I'm going to edit this page, and now we're going to choose this section, and I'm going to save it as a favorite. And I also might have a look through to see if there's a backup option that I could choose as well. So I might go for this one actually, and then having the other one as a secondary header further down the page. Secondary hero. So now we've got our hero sections chosen. Maybe we're going to go for a short content introduction below the first hero. I quite like this one. Offers a nice contrast. We've got a small square image option here. So I'm going to click on favorite for that one. And of course, you can spend a lot longer to look through these as well, should you want to. You don't have to fly through them as quickly as I am. We're going to add an FAQs section to our page. So now I'm going to have another look through, and we quite like this one, so we're going to add that as a favorite. And let's have a look at maybe one more option. We're going to go for a classic 3-column signpost option. These blocks, again, are images, so this would have the titles overlaying the images. But we're going to go for this option here, which is a 3-column split with circular image options for each. No, I'm going to be lazy, and I'm going to go for this one because it means I don't have to put images in place. Okay, I think we'll go with that as our starting point. So now we go back to our home page, and we're ready to just slot these in one at a time. So I'm going to add a section, go to saved sections, and from here, I'm going to choose this as my primary hero. Then I'm going to add a section below, and we're going to go from our hero into our introductory welcome text with a bit more detail. And in fact, looking at it now, I think there's a couple of things I want to do. One is I'm going to bring this content in. So I'm going to bring it in 3 blocks, and then I'm going to take this content out so we've got synergy between those 2 sections. And now quickly I can change this introductory heading to be left aligned to, again, we've got a nice straight line down that left-hand side now that matches up. The fact that we don't have the content mirroring over to the right makes it slightly asymmetrical. I don't think that's a problem. It's as long as we're consistent and we carry that through our site. Now, in between those 2 sections, I'm thinking that's where I want to put my signposting in place. So now I'm going to put that in there to divide up the content. But now we've got a slight challenge on our hands. We brought this in 3 columns, and now the content's kind of coming out away from it. So that could look a little bit messy by not having that clear divide. this is where we can decide to change the width of each of these columns. And even that's jumping in a little bit too much at the moment because we've got gutter widths that are much wider on this site. Because it's on a 24 column grid, we have to be careful about making sure that our columns are the same for all three, the same width. But that just requires sometimes a little bit of tweaking to get it to fit. But that's the beauty of SquareForge. We can do all of this. So we're not held to the structure of the template like we would be on something like WordPress, for example, where if we were to make this number of changes in this level of detail, we'd probably be looking at a little bit of custom code, or quite a lot of custom code in some instances. So now we've got those three sections. We've got that nice clean line going down throughout. Let's have a look at our FAQs. And we're going to want to do the same, but as we can see, it's already been set up in that format. So now we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4 bespoke sections in place. And I can edit the section and go for our background. And this is where I'm going to put an image. And I'm just going to go for something very simple. We'll just go for this cityscape shot, and then we'll see how our content fits over top of it. Okay, so naturally, I went with something that I knew would look busy. So here is where we can use things like the overlay to add a bit of impact. And what we're going to do is go for the darkest color pack option. And we can see that this design has really come to life now by just making those couple of tweaks. It's got a simple corporate structure. We've got a nice balance here. And then if we Unsplash doesn't always do well with multiple keyword searches. So Unsplash is the stock library that's built into Squarespace. We'll go for this one, which offers a nice high contrast to our background. And you get the idea. We can now start bringing our content in from whether it's an existing website, a document, or if we type directly into the site, which is, I suppose, the advanced way of doing it. I would recommend usually having kind of the content available somewhere, and you can bring that into the site. But there we go. So by just tweaking some of that, we've been able to change it a fair bit. And to wrap up this webinar, I'm going to show you one more thing, and that is adding our own color palette into the site styles. So I haven't decided a color palette here, so I could either choose one of the existing ones built into Squarespace, and I think that's what we'll do as a starting point. And then I can go in and edit the color palette directly. So we can see that there's been quite a bit of change here already. Wow, that's strong. I think we'll tweak that one. So what we could do is decide to make the pink color the middle color. And then this one, we're going to go for a really dark, just off black with a hint of that pink tone in there. I don't like that. So just tweaking on the fly here. Go for that red currant color. It's not as dangerous as that original color palette was. So I think that's what we'll go with. There we go. So that's color palette, and that changes the flow and look, and we can target each section individually depending on how we want to proceed with that. So for example, this section here, we can now put it with that slightly pink overlay, which brings it into the brand colors, and it's your choice then in terms of how you want to tweak with that going forward. What we can also do is go into the font, and I'm going to choose an existing font pack for the site. And again, by changing the fonts and the colors, we're starting to change how this website, the overall look and feel of it. Just realize that the column widths here aren't exactly lined up. That would take a little bit of tweaking. Another option, and probably the easiest option, is to bring this content over to the edge on the left-hand side. But there we go. with just a bit of tweaking, we've been able to wireframe a homepage. We've been able to add in a color palette. And if you've got a pre-existing brand, we can update the logo. Then we can apply the brand colors on a case-by-case basis as we replicate the site. We've got content in place which gives it structure. And this always looks better, in my opinion, than lorem ipsum, the Latin placeholder text, because it looks like real content. There's a different balance to each of the paragraphs. They're not exactly the same length. And that gives us more to work with then as well, a more realistic content layout option. But there we go. I think that's all I wanted to cover with that. We'll just jump back now and we'll just wrap up now for the next couple of minutes. That covers everything that I wanted to with SquareForge. Anything else that you wanted to add, Will?
The only other thing is how you could integrate plugins with Forge.
Good point. Yeah.
All of our own plugins have been developed with Squarespace in mind, so it is a really seamless integration. Yeah, to be honest, that's the only thing I wanted to cover. It's just plugins.
That was a long pause for you to just agree.
I was trying to think of what to say.
There is nothing here that's different to working with a Squarespace site from scratch. All it does is it just gives you a wider range of extra tools that you can add into the mix. So we can still add in the same plugin range, and there's a really good plugin range available on pixelhaze.academy, just saying. Also, we've had a lot of fun working with the Square Websites team over the past few months, where I've been creating tutorials for their plugin range. And check out the table plugin as well, because that one blew my mind in how simple a end result it is, but how much more we can do with our Squarespace sites, because that's always been one of my main bugbears. We've had there is no way of creating table structures effectively within Squarespace, but not only can we do that with that plugin, but also you can feed them in from a CSV sheet as well. And so what we're looking to do next with SquareForge, once we tell more people about this amazing startup tool, if we say so ourselves, once we've got kind of our iteration and feedback now from a wide range of designers who started using SquareForge, we are looking at partnering up with other organizations. So like I know Henry and the team at SEO Space are doing an amazing job with their SEO plugin for Squarespace. We'd love to see ways of combining that and showing demos of how SquareForge layouts work really well for on-site SEO. Also, Rasmus' Spark plugin has done an amazing job there with Spark plugin. And again, SquareForge can be worked with that. We can use the start instructions on SquareForge and then add all of the bespoke elements and stylistic plugins that are all built in under the hood in Spark plugin to create really advanced effects combined. So SquareForge doesn't really compete directly with any individual area. And also, one final thing as well is that if you're a Squarespace template designer or you're interested in starting it, you can, and you are fully licensed. We're happy for you to do it. Just let everyone know about it as well. To use SquareForge as the starting structure template builder for building your own unique templates, because they're not going to be monochrome. They're going to have different content, and you're probably going to want to tweak some of the structures to get them to all fit together perfectly anyway. So we have zero problem whatsoever with you using SquareForge to create your own unique bespoke Squarespace templates and then selling them online. Just let us know, because we'll help sell your templates for you as well. So I think that wraps up this webinar. If you're new to SquareForge, give us a shout. We're going to make it available. So if anyone's really interested, and if you're either new to Squarespace or an experienced designer, and you want to jump on a 15-minute, 20-minute one-to-one call with Will or myself, we're going to be putting out an option. We're going to have limited spaces each week, but we're going to try and help as many people as possible. And we can explain then what SquareForge is, if there's anything that's still confusing after today, how it fits with our online memberships and community memberships over on School, so we can get the best of both worlds. With that as well. So not only are you setting up SquareForge and using it regularly, you've got a community you can come back to. You can jump into our weekly support sessions and get direct feedback over the capabilities of SquareForge and pretty much everything else Squarespace as well, and other things. So that's probably a good time to wrap up. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nope. Nope, that's me.
Well, thanks for bearing with us throughout this video, and we'll probably come back with a few more videos on SquareForge. Oh yes, there is one more point. We have a Website Builders YouTube channel that has a dedicated SquareForge playlist on there. So if you go on to YouTube, we'll try and add a link somewhere, but if you go onto YouTube and search for Website Builders channel, it's the one that will appear with a purple backdrop and a small icon on there. Jump on there. There's loads of tutorials about Squarespace, on Squarespace and on the Squarespace plugins, but more particular to this video, SquareForge as well. Otherwise, we'll see you soon. Cheers, guys.